Hi there. Thanks for stopping in. A couple of days ago, I needed a bottle opener. Now most soda bottles, beer bottles come with twist-off caps, but the one I had didn't, and I couldn't find a bottle opener around here anymore. So I decided to make one. Now I got that cap off with just using a screwdriver, but the challenge hit me and I decided to make that bottle opener, and this is what I came up with. I dyed it the red closest I could to match the Coke can, which is my preferred drink. And I did a couple of other things on there too that I'll show you. Now a lot of woodworking supply houses will sell kits for woodworkers or wood turners to make different kinds of bottle openers. But I like to do things from scratch on my own. Maybe I'm just too cheap to buy the kits. A little while ago I made a Kaleidoscope without a kit and it worked out just fine. This worked out for me. If you'd like to see how it was done, stick around, I'll tell you. Well, here's the model for the project today. Orange cream soda, like the shape of this bottle, and I've drawn up a detailed drawing and marked all the different measurements. I used calipers to make sure I got all the measurements right. Then I took this, I turned it down to 2.5 inches in this area, which is the greater diameter of this bottle. Then I marked all the different transition points that I'm going to need to find. This is the very top of the bottle. There's a fairly serious knot here, but I don't believe it's going to go down into the inside where it's going to be turned away for the neck size of the bottle. So I'll put this back on the lathe now. We'll see what we can do with it. First thing I want to do is take all these areas down close to the spot where I'm going to need them to be. Between these two, the largest area is going to be 1 5/64 of an inch. So I have set my calipers to 1 1/4. I don't want to get it down too close to my final destination because if there's any splitting, fraying, or anything going on with the fibers, with the grain, I want to be able to clean it up with the skew chisel or maybe my spindle gouge. Anyway, first thing I'm going to do is just define these lines with my skew chisel, and then I'm going to take my parting tool and take this area down to that 1 1/4 inches. Now this area needs to go down to 1 19/32 of an inch. So I've set this to 1 3/4 and I'll take it down to there. And from that spot to here, it needs to slope for the neck. After checking again, I realized I needed to add this line. Just on this side of this line is where it actually is the thinnest, the narrowest in this area. So I'm going to turn this down to the same as this, and I'll do the fine tuning afterwards. Alright, now it's time to get out the skew chisel and the spindle gouge and start doing some work on this. Now, with the bottle on top here, you should be able to see that I need to slope this from here down to here. So I'm going to start with this area. I want to do the smallest areas first and then work toward the chuck where the greatest support is. I just want to remove some of the bulk here to make it a little easier to get in there with my tools. I have these calipers set now to 1 and 19/32, so I can try to get down to exactly what I want here. That should work just fine there. Now I have to find the right dimension in this area. Right there is where I need to take it down to 31/32. So I'm going to do that now. I have my calipers set up and ready to go. Alright, that's right where I want it. Now I need to get these 2 points sloped together. That's looking pretty darn good to me. Far from perfect, but I don't do perfect, so I'm going to sand this now, and then I'll be back. I have it sanded to 400 grit now, and there are a couple of fairly substantial cracks. I was thinking about filling them with glue and sawdust, which is what I usually do, but this is wood, and I think that adds some character to this piece, so I'm going to leave them. I realize that could be a mistake when I park this off. If that's going all the way through, I could have a problem. It could fall apart on me, but we won't know until we try. I want to remove a lot of the bulk up here so I can get my spindle gouge in there and make almost flat top. I don't want it quite flat, just a little bit of a dome. And I'm turning this at 1000 RPM. Although I know it's not strong enough to prevent all kinds of catastrophes, I put masking tape around here, a couple of layers, just to help a little bit. keep this together in case it wants to fall apart. Nothing ventured, nothing gained once again. So I'm going to take some more of this off so I can get my tool in there a little better. I want to round this over a little bit, and I'm going to part it off here. Now if I go right off there, there's a decent chance that this piece is going to fly around and cause me nothing but catastrophe here. So I'm going to get a saw, cut that off, and I'll be right back. Just going to use my little flush cut saw here. And there we go. I've brought the live center up with the cone on it and put a wad of shop towel in there to protect the end of it and add some support. Now, cutting it off on the end grain here, as you can see, this is very coarse grained wood. So getting a clean cut in there at the best of times would not be easy. Now, one mistake I made was making this so short in here. It's tough to get any kind of tooling in there. So I'm just going to go in with my parting tool and try to part it off in there, going a little bit concave inside there. We'll just have to see how this works, and I don't intend to go all the way through, I don't believe, because it might just fly around when it comes apart. Turning at 1000 RPM. Alright, I've left a little nub in there, probably 3/16 of an inch, and I'm going to take it off the lathe and go cut that off. I don't know how well this is going to show up, but because it's such real coarse wood and I didn't have room to get a decent gouge in there, it's badly chipped up, very badly. So what I'm going to try is to take this medium gap filling CA glue, and I'm going to try filling this whole area. I'll let it sit overnight to cure properly, and then take a look at it in the morning and see what I can do with it. Alright, I have filled all the gouges and chips in here with CA glue, and now I'm ready to sand that. I have marked the center with a center finder, and let me explain what I have here. This is the chute for my dust extractor. This is a chamber for my vacuum pump. There's a hole in the end that this can fit into, and it's deep enough that it won't go all the way in. I've cut a couple of pieces of this craft foam to try to protect this edge when it goes into this hole. Then I'm going to bring my center, my live center up, put it in there, tighten it in there enough that it should hold it while I sand this. Now I'm going to move this dust extractor over here so that it's going to draw from this area. I'm going to put this in reverse at 500 RPM, and I'm going to sand this area. Now I don't have to sand the entire thing because I'm going to be drilling, I believe it's a 1 1/8 inch hole in the center of this after this is all sanded. So I'll give you a short view of how this is going to work, but I don't expect you to want to sit there and watch sanding for very long. And then I'll come back when this is finished. Well, there it is, and I'm the first to admit it's not real pretty, but it is what it is. Now what I have is a Jacob's chuck in my headstock with the 1 1/8 inch bit. It's a Forstner bit. In the tailstock, I've got my live center. I've put a pin through it so it won't rotate, and I've taken out the little pin that's in the center. I'm going to put this wad of paper towel on there, put the top of the bottle opener against that. Now once this is in the hole in the center, I'll jam this up against it. Oh, come on. Gotta get my hands to work together here. Not always an easy feat. Put that up there. And I'm just going to use this to apply pressure, and I'm going to use my hand, my left hand, to keep this from turning. So let's see how this is going to work. All right, I'm not sure that's quite deep enough. I'm just going to keep doing this until it is. You'll notice it's a little off center, and that's on purpose. I need more space over here for a little plate that I'm going to put in there to use as the opener. I'll be right back when this is finished. All right, I have it drilled to the depth that I want. Yesterday, I made a test piece in the end of this spindle, and I installed this little aluminum plate. I just cut it out of a piece of 1/8 inch aluminum that I had. Drilled it, countersunk them for number 4 screws, tested it out, and it works just fine. The bottle cap fits in there just perfectly. So now I want to take this piece and I want to put it underneath here, put it on top of this like that. I'm going to, so that's upside down. I will mark it and then use a chisel to take out that area until this sits down flush, just like I did with this here. I'll get working on that now. As long as I have this little plate over far enough that I can get this bottle to put the cap underneath it and still have room for the cap to hit on there, I'll be able to open the bottle. So what I want to do is take a sharp pencil, mark around this, then I'm going to take a chisel and chisel out that area so this sits down flush. Another thing I want to do is put a hose clamp around here with some padding, just to make sure that when I'm chiseling it, it doesn't make the grain split. I found that I had that problem on here. It's so close to the edge that it was splitting a little bit. So I'm hoping a hose clamp and some gentle chiseling might do that. That's my next step. I have it marked now, around from the outside of that aluminum plate. I need to stay just inside that line. I want it to be a good tight fit. I have a 3/8 inch chisel, which is just about perfect. It's slightly narrow, which is better than too wide, of course. So now I need to figure out a jig of some kind to hold this in so I can do that chiseling. I've got a real quick and dirty jig I put together. A couple pieces of MDF, 2 pieces of scrap plywood, drilled a hole in the top piece of plywood. I put some masking tape around the inside of that to try to keep from scratching this up. Although it's not fine wood, I try not to scratch things up if I don't need to. Got some paper towel or shop towel down there for padding. Now I just need to take my chisels and take out that area to put that little piece of aluminum in there. So let's take a look at doing that. I've clamped the jig down so it doesn't move around on me too much. Now what I have to do is line up my chisel along the inside of that line, then bring my mallet over and just give it a tap. I'm trying not to go down too deep, even though I've got this clamp around the outside. There's a good chance that it'll split if I'm not real delicate with this. So this is going to take a little while. this is going to take quite a while. I'll be back when it's finished. Well, that didn't take as long as I thought it might. Maybe 10 minutes. Helps to have nice sharp tools. Now, if this was a hardwood that I would be worried about it splitting, I would pre-drill for these screws. But because it's a softwood, it should go in there just fine, and I want it to have as much meat to grab as possible. So I'm just going to drive these in, and then this part of the project will be finished. All right. Just going to get that bottle and see how that works. And it's going to be perfect. Okay, don't want to tear the cap off with this pop inside there. All right, on to the next step. Okay, I admit it, I'm a lucky woodworker. I do have all the tools I need, and I've got most of the tools I want. I mean, let's face it, all of us have tools out there we don't have and would like, whether we've got all the ones we need or not. So one of those things I've got that I feel lucky about is this CNC router. And it's going to allow me to put a logo on the side of this that I want to do. So let's take a look at that quickly right now. It took about 40 minutes for this to do the carving. As you can probably tell, it spends a lot of time carving air because the software is for a two-dimensional carve. So I don't have the facility to cause it to carve on a round object. And that's why it took so long, and that's why I've sped it up as fast as I have. Now there's one of the things I don't like about working with a coarse wood. No matter how sharp your tools are, because the grain is so coarse, it's easy to get some fraying, some ripping a little bit, and that means I have to use sandpaper. Sanding by hand is not one of my favorite things, but I'll take a few minutes, maybe a few hours, and I'll get in here and I'll see what I can do. I'll be back. Alright, I've sanded it. I did not sand it perfectly. Did I mention I don't like hand sanding? I don't. But it's a lot better than it was. While I was sanding it, I did another test on MDF, and it turned out much better. All I did was swipe a couple of times over the top of the letters with 240 grit sandpaper, and I think it looks quite nice. Now, one more step. Decided I want to make this can red. So I'm going to test a couple of different red dyes that I have, and we'll see what I choose, and I'll be right back to show you. I have two different colors of aniline dyes that are red. One is called Ruby, the other one is called Bright Crimson. And I think the Bright Crimson, while it's not perfect, is closer than the Ruby is. So I'm going to go with Bright Crimson. Got it right here. Got my rubber gloves ready to go. So I'm just going to move the camera in closer so you can see what I'm doing, and I'm just going to give this a coat of this dye, and hopefully one coat will do it, but probably two. Be right back. I have a drop cloth on here, which is plastic backed. And I folded it 4 times, so that should keep any dye from going through onto my work surface. Otherwise, I'm going to have a real pout. Anyway, I don't expect it to do a great job on the bottom due to the fact that there's CA glue there, but I won't know until I try. I'm just going to give it some coating here. Work it around with this shop towel. I'll let it soak in the bottom there. It's going into the end grain, so it should soak in pretty quickly. And I'm just going to continue to do the rest of it. I was right. The bottom certainly doesn't look good, but it is the bottom. But I don't understand this one streak here in the grain. It's not taking the dye at all. Anyway, done about as good a job as I can. I'm going to let this coat dry for a while, and then I might just come back and do another. I quite like that. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, time for the big test. I haven't tried it yet. You get to witness the first attempt, and I hope this is going to work as well as I think it's going to work. Well, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. I know I did. Have a great day in your shop and be safe. Please come back again next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Have a great day now. Bye. You didn't even clean up your mess.